Hey gamers, in a desperate attempt to force content in an expansion that has overall been pretty content dry, I'm going to try something that's pretty unique. What if you took the MMORPG and made it just an RPG? The idea to play this game this way was not an idea that came from me. The inspiration for me to try this came from Rad Games, who is currently trying to play through Final Fantasy XIV solo. To define what I mean by solo, this does not only mean minimizing all player interaction, this is a true solo to the best of my ability. Much like how Rad Games has his rules set up, I want to have my rules to be as close as possible to his. These rules include, but not limited to, no market boards, no trading other players, and no grouping of any kind if it can be helped. This also includes trusts. This is pretty much the equivalent to a RuneScape Ultimate Ironman. Everything I want must be farmed out by my own hands. I will admit for the first hour I did use quest rewards, but after a certain point I stopped using them. It was before any dungeon, so I'm sure it's fine. The open world early MSQ quests are a joke even with no gear at all. Now with that long intro out of the way, we can get started. As expected, the first step is to make the character. Obviously it's a Mikote because my degeneracy knows no bounds. And now on to which class to start as. FF14 is an MMO where you can be any class you want on one character, so the choice here is not permanent. The default choice for soloing any content in this game is to pick Marauder to eventually get Warrior. However, that is boring, so for now I'm going to go Archer for the sole purpose to see how far I can get. Arcanist would probably be smarter to test out how Scholar can solo things later, but for now it's Archer. Next is to come up with a funny name and then actually start. One 2-minute queue later and we're in. There is nothing really special with the early game of Rome Reborn. None of the challenge of being solo comes into play until we actually start getting to the dungeons. For the first while, it's the standard early game experience. First thing I do is go accept the level 1 Archer quest and start by immediately getting punished for spamming the escape key, and then head out to the front entrance to kill some of the basic low-level mobs for the quest. I stay out here until level 5 by killing some extra mobs and doing one of the nearby fates so I can immediately accept the level 5 Archer quest, to which I proceed to not do and continue the MSQ instead. I head over to Banach and make my first mistake that is corrected later. I accept and put on the gear I get as a quest reward. As I state, I do remove this gear later. It's all before I zone into Sastasha for the first time. I also did buy gear to complete the inspection quest. Oops. Anyway, I move on to the first solo duty for the MSQ. After sitting here spamming one button, I wonder, why does everyone I try to get into this game call it so boring? On the way back to the turn, I do some hunting log for free XP and continue on. I pull a bunch of mobs in this cave, triggering my fight or flight response from playing a lot of World of Warcraft lately, and then quickly remember what MMO I was playing. After some time and more disgusting quest reward armor later, I move on to the next solo duty, which involved me running in a circle for about a minute until the mob died. I returned to Gridania to unlock inns and guild leaves, and then quickly realized I didn't attune to the Aetherite at the spot I was just at. After many boring quests later, I remember to attune to that Aetherite and do the next joke of a solo duty. It was at this point I finally realized my mistake of using quest armor. I remove all of it, and from now on all my gear will be from leveling my crafters and gatherers. And thus, the quest to craft the item level 5 helmet began. I want to craft this specific item because it was me buying this exact helmet that allowed me to do the inspection quest. Back in Gridania, I head to the Carpenter Guild and see I finally have a reason to do the level 10 Archer quest. I slowly but surely did all of the Archer class quests, stopping at the level 15 one. With this done, I can finally go back and unlock all of the crafters and gatherers I need. I started with going back to the Carpenter Guild. To add a little bit more spice to the solo challenge, I will not be buying items from NPCs that are obtainable through other sources. Normally, to get a jumpstart on gatherer classes, you just buy the early level materials from the supply NPCs that are in the room. I decided against buying materials and wanted to gather them myself. To start Carpenter, I need to unlock Botanist, and while I was at it, I grabbed Leatherworker. Unlike Carpenter, I need to gather materials, but instead of chopping trees or mining nodes, you need to farm monster drops. Under normal circumstances, you almost never need to actually go out into the world to kill random mobs for materials that you need. For Leatherworker, I could get started on leveling it right away because I already had some of the animal skin for questing naturally. I unlocked the level 5 quest and saw I needed Animal Snoo, and the only way to get my hands on it is not within the Shroud. I need to go over to Thanalan and kill specific mobs. I planned at some point to go and gather these materials, but for now, I got my first crafting upgrade, the legendary leather hat. I got started with botanist, gathering maple logs and other items I would need for future crafts, started actually leveling carpenter with said logs, and stopped because I needed bronze rivets, which are obtained from armorsmith or blacksmith, which are both in Limsa, which is a location I have not yet have access to. After doing the next MSQ solo duty, I had realized that I should put it on hold and pretend that I haven't done the inspection quest yet. So this means I can't do the MSQ until I unlock the airship to go to Ul'dah and Limsa. To recomplete the inspection quest, I need to get my hands on the leather eye patch. To craft it, I need the animal snoo from a mob in Thanalan, and hempen yarn, which is obtained from the level 1 weaver craft. All paths I had before me led to Thanalan, so I took the long walk from Shroud all the way to Ul'dah. There was no difficulty on this run, but it did take a while. I grabbed all the aetherites on the way there and ended up in Ul'dah. From here I unlocked Weaver, Miner, Goldsmith, and Alchemist, which all will be useful in the future. To craft the yarn, I need some Moko grass, and to get Moko grass I need to level my Botanist. Before going back to the Shroud, I gather the animal snoo I need and level Miner to 5. I also grab the Horizon Aetherite to come back later. I continue the Botanist class quest until hitting 11, the minimum level to gather the Moko grass I need. Upon returning to Horizon, I realize I need the Scythe offhand to even gather it. I go back to the Shroud, brute force my way through the gathering quests, get the offhand, realize I don't have enough gil to teleport, and then finally, for real this time, go back to Horizon and to see the legendary Moko grass node. I gather what I need and rejoice when I finally equip my high quality eye patch. Just think, I did all of this work for an item you can spend 141 gil upon starting the game. With that out of the way, I can finally do the MSQ. I gain access to Limsa, unlocking the last of the crafters and gatherers I needed, and continue through, stopping once I unlock Sastasha. Before we dig into the actual meat of this challenge, I need to prep Archer so I actually have a chance. To do this, I need to level all crafters, getting a random assortment of items from monster drops and gathering. I don't want this whole video to be just about crafting and gathering, so I'll blaze through the next 2 hours of game time. I crafted the full set of the shiny new Archer gear. Along the way, I had one of my crafts interrupted by this level 30 bird. I don't know why it didn't occur to me that being attacked interrupts the cast, also deleting all of the items used for it. Getting impatient from all this prep, I wanted to have my first try at Sastasha. Sastasha, what is usually a speed bump, turned into something that actually became a challenge. The beauty of playing the game this way turns things that are normally something you don't even think about into a real challenge. The whole reason I picked Archer was to try out its kiting potential. I slowly pulled my way through the packs of mob using physical range shared skills. They get 2 very important abilities that are required. There's an ability that binds a target for 10 seconds, and an ability that slows a target for 10 seconds. This made fighting multiple mobs doable. Doing any damage to a target while they are binded will break it. However, if I use my damage over time before binding it, the dot will still deal damage. The first time I bind and slow is a full 10 seconds. After that, every time it is used, the duration is less and less. So on mobs with a lot of health like bosses, I need to sparingly use both debuffs so they don't become ineffective. Using this method, I clear all the way to the first boss, Chopper. Chopper's boss arena is barely large enough to kite. Whenever the boss got close to me, I would root, slow, or pop sprint just to give enough distance to where it can't auto-attack me. Every auto did about 30% of my health. At first, this did not seem doable, getting the boss to around 50%, but the second try got to 20%. On the 4th try, I get dangerously close to dying, but I managed to pull it off. To allow progressing through dungeons to feel more rewarding, I allow myself upon the first clear of a boss to open the coffer, meaning if I zone out of Sastasha and have to re-clear this boss, I am not allowed to open the chest. I get the casting hat and an earring that I can actually equip and use. One trash pack later and it was the second boss, Captain Madison and his 2 Shadowtail Reavers. Starting this fight for the first time seemed like it was going to be really easy. However, Captain Madison is barely fast enough to get hits in on me. Because I haven't made any potions yet, the chip damage over time eventually gets to the point where I can't out-heal it. Right away, upon this first try, I immediately thought that potions may be required, and thus ended attempt number 1. Back outside the dungeon, I also decide that while I'm out here, I'll also give myself a helmet and a bow upgrade. After way more farming, I get the ability to create potions. I make over 100, which should be more than enough to get 1 clear of Sastasha. With potions in hand, I create the bow, helmet, and boots I wanted to be more prepared for Captain Madison. Back inside, I clear up to Chopper again, and first try him, then move back on to Captain Madison. This is the first of 2 Captain Madison fights. If I struggle really hard with this one, I will not be able to clear the second one. I kite around focusing down his guards, taking full advantage of bind and slow to maximize my potion usages. Once he gets down to 50%, he runs away, the coffer giving me a casting chest piece. The next trash pack, I make the mistake of not focusing down the archer and get punished for it. After a bit more time clearing through, I get to the second Captain Madison fight. This fight is very similar to the first, but instead of just going to 50% and running, he spawns 4 scurvy dog ads that I must target down and slowly take down. I barely scrape by clearing this fight. Even though I did this on the first try, this felt significantly harder than Chopper. Up next was the final boss of Sastasha, Den the Orca-Toothed. After a funny intro, the fight begins. Den is very slow and is by far the easiest of the 3 bosses to kite. Periodically throughout the fight, he will spawn ads from unnatural ripples from around the arena. In a normal group, you usually kill the boss before any ads spawn, but as a solo, these ads could easily overwhelm and kill me. I decide instead of risking my life to stop the ads from spawning, I target them down running around in a circle. These ads have an ability called Water Cannon, which is a ranged attack. On their own, it does not do a significant amount of damage, but when there's more than like 5 or 6 attacking you all at once, it can be really scary. Thankfully, these ads do not have a lot of health and they go down easily. After a long fight, Den the Orca-Tooth is down, and I have soloed Sastasha as an archer. This rewards me with the paladin weapons from the coffer. I decide that the free item upon clearing a dungeon for the first time is acceptable only on the first clear, giving me legs, which are barely better than my crafted ones. In the description, I'll leave a link to an unlisted video of the full run of Sastasha, so you can fully appreciate how close these fights felt. With the first real challenge out of the way, I was feeling confident. I decided that repelling shot may be useful for the next dungeon and decided to unlock it before going there, and I went straight there. No gear upgrades, no restock of potions. I just wanted to jump right into it to know what I was getting myself into. The Tam-Tara Deepcroft is the second dungeon of Final Fantasy XIV. I knew Sastasha was only a stepping stone for what lies before me. I went in fully knowing I was underprepared, but regardless wanted to see how far I could get and gauge what I needed to do. In this dungeon, you progress through to destroy cultist orbs. Every orb is protected by a progressively more and more difficult set of ads before the actual boss spawns, the Void Soul Counter. Not only do I need to clear this opening phase, I also need to defeat this Void Scent in one go. I quickly come up with a strategy for phase 1. There are 2 pillars in all 3 of the different arenas. I use these to the best of my ability to line of sight the Imp's casting and ice ability, and the cultists which spam fire. If left unchecked, this will quickly overwhelm me and absolutely destroy me. Upon defeating the ads, the first Void Soul Counter spawns, and immediately augments itself to make its auto attacks deal increased magic damage. Even without this augmentation, the auto attacks are lethal upon getting hit 3 to 4 times. Even though this phase seemed intimidating, it was significantly easier than the first set of ads. Simply walking around and kiting it works beautifully. The only scary part is that periodically throughout the fight, this boss will shoot a ranged attack, but it's nothing that you can't heal through. The first one goes down and the coffer gives me a duplicate casting hat. I dive into the next boss, which is exactly the same as the first. The only difference is that it has 3 imps instead of 2. After many tries, this one goes down the same as the first. The only thing worth noting for the between bosses was the section with 4 enemies, 2 of them being casters. They go down, giving me the rosary to now challenge the next boss. The same exact thing as the last 2, but instead of 2 or 3 imps, it has 4. With how difficult the last 2 were, I was not feeling very confident having to fight 4, but instead of using the normal pillar method, I went over to the room where you get the rosary, and ran back and forth from inside the room to this pillar on the wall. Delaying for as much time as I can, I kill the cultist and spawn the last Void Soul counter. This one goes down the same as the other 2. This now opens up the final boss, Galvinth the Dominator. To be honest, I was not expecting to get even remotely this far being this underprepared. I knew if I could somehow make it to this boss, I already knew that it was going to be impossible to beat it in my current form. The boss constantly spams water, a high damage rage attack. After realizing I can't kite or line of sight this, I begrudgingly leave in order to better prepare myself. Thinking of ways to better prepare myself, I unlock materia extraction and melding, then decide that leveling Fisher will be required in the long run. To go with my rule of no quest rewards and no buying from NPCs, I stubbornly look for alternatives than using the level 1 bait that is given to me. Looking through the crafting recipes, all of the bait requires a low-level culinarian craft, but to make crayfish bait, I need crayfish, but to get crayfish, I need crayfish bait. A few friends of mine tell me that it's possible to create lures using goldsmith, and one of these being crowflies, a level 20 goldfish craft. To make these I need brass ingots, which are each 2 copper ore and 1 zinc ore. To mass produce this, I need to do a lot of mining. Up until now I've spent hours upon hours crafting and gathering, and for the most part I've cut out about 95% of it, but I want you to get more of an idea of what I've actually been going through. I'll call this segment the punishment for picking Archer as the starter class. This will include my distraction making lures and making a new set of archer gear.
Water flowing hard, the land we call our home. Push to keep the dark from coming. Feel the weight of what we owe. This, the song of sons and daughters. Hide the heart of who we are. Making peace to build a future. Strong, united, working till we fall. The air and water flowing hard, the land we call our home. Push to keep the dark from coming. Feel the weight of what we owe. This, the song of sons and daughters. Hide the heart of who we are. Making peace to build a future. Strong, united, working till we fall. And we all lift, and we're all adrift together, through the cold mist, till we're lifeless together.
Alright, this is a progress report. So far level 23 archer, 18 bow, full set of goat skin with a little bit of materia in it. Jewelry, couldn't, forgetting about the bracelet because it's a fishing thing to upgrade it. Crafters and gatherers are highest level one's 25. The miner got just is geared as the gear. Crafter gear, all made by hand. Inventory's looking absolutely terrible. A lot of crafting and gathering. Playtime, 18.5 hours, and I haven't even cleared the second dungeon yet. Not feeling confident, I zone back into Tam-Tara with minimum item level turned off. The only difference to having it on is a difference of 3 levels, so instead of being level 16, I'm level 19. I get back to Galvanth and see it's about the same, but this time I can see the imp ad. I immediately die and just zone out, saving myself time. Because I know how daunting Galvanth is, I sacrifice glory. I zone back into Tam-Tara, but with this time only Silence Echo on, meaning I am at max level and my gear is not scaled down whatsoever. In all honesty, despite this, clearing back to Galvanth felt very similar. I start again pulling him, having zero hope of actually getting through. Now that I have a fighting chance against Galvanth, I can finally explain what he actually does other than water. Every so often, whenever he gets low, he will become immune to all damage and spawn imp ads. These imp ads must be targeted down because they are the reason why Galvanth is invincible. The lower he gets, the more ads spawn during these mini phases. I continue to struggle because I am still being barraged by his water attacks, even while he's immune. Until I make an amazing discovery. I notice that after a set of imp ads, Galvanth stops casting water, but instead just starts running at me, not doing anything. After a while of this, I realize that it's because the boss is told to do Drain Touch, which is a melee ability. When this action is queued, the boss prioritizes doing it. In disbelief that this might actually be possible, I take full advantage of this. I ignore the non-essential ads since they don't do a lot of damage and target down the imps. Doing this, I get all the way down to 6%. Victory was in sight. On the very next try, I actually managed to pull it off, completely to my surprise. Oh, oh, oh my god. Oh my god. Holy balls. And with that, part 1 is over. I managed to somehow solo both Sastasha and Tam-Tara Deepcroft, cementing that Archer might actually be a viable option for soloing Final Fantasy XIV. Up next will be Copperbell Mines. See you in the next one. Thanks for watching.